welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so it's time to sow the sunflowers, and this is basically how I do them. Now, I always save my own seed from the previous year, so that's what the seed looks like. And basically, the way I plant them is pointed end. If you notice with the seed, if I can just get it, there's like a pointed end which is at the top, and then the bottom end which is sort of a bit flatter. What I do is I plant these in these, which are kind of an inch and a half. You know, sort of sections in the tray, and I'll, with the pointed end first, push them down into the soil. Now, they're not going to stop in here long. Sunflowers, you find, grow really quickly. You know, as soon as they've germinated, they will grow really quickly. And so what I do is I just push one into each of the cells, and as soon as they've shooted out and started to grow, what I will do is you know, sort of quickly transplant them into you know, more of a sort of 4 or 5 inch pot, you know, to let them grow on in the greenhouse. But for germination, what I find is when you save your own seed, you're not going to get 100% success rate. You know, you're likely to get maybe sort of 70–80% success. So what I do is I always put plenty in. I'll be doing another tray exactly the same as this. And basically, with the pointed end, just push them in. If you feel any seeds that are obviously hollow, you know that you can feel that the kernel's still in there. You know, then that's a seed that's good to go. If you find that they're a little bit thin, or when you squeeze, so each time I'm putting a seed in, I'm kind of testing that the seed's okay. I don't know if you noticed a couple of seconds ago, I actually put one back in the bag, which is I wasn't very happy with. So just push them in. I've got a bit of a lump there, and these end up probably being a few inches down. So now I've just put in the last few in here. All I'll need to do with these, and you do find with sunflowers that they do grow quite easily. The ones that are going to grow will grow pretty much if you scatter them on the ground. To be honest with you, you know, they do grow really easily. So if you want something that looks beautiful and you know you can grow it really easily, then sunflowers are definitely the thing to go for. Now, I'm just going to sprinkle up a little bit of compost on the top. As you can see, I'm just sort of rubbing that along the surface of the board, and that's more than enough. So I'll just water them with tap water, and they'll be perfectly good to grow. Now, I'll do another tray of these. This variety, I'm not quite sure what they're called, to be honest with you, because I've had this variety now. I bought one pack of seed about 10 years ago, and I've just saved the seed every year ever since. You know, they're very easy to save. If you look back at my videos, sort of the back end of last year, you'll see me saving the seed, you know, for later in the season if you want to do that. But you know, if you buy one packet of seeds, they'll last you a lifetime, basically. But I'll just put these, obviously put a name tag in, and give them a bit of water, and just start them off in the greenhouse. As soon as they start to go, obviously pot them up into a bigger pot, you know, something perhaps like that or a bit bigger, and they'll grow on. These ones that I'm growing here grow to about 8, 9, 10 foot high, and the flowers are quite big. They're sort of about 18 inches, 2 foot across when they grow. So they're a giant variety. I can't remember the actual variety name, but I can remember there's giant in the title anyway. But that's the sunflowers for this year. Okay, so I'd just like to do the question section for this week, and I've had quite a few questions come through from various people, so thank you very much for that. So the first question comes from William Coleman, and he was asking me why I plant the potatoes so low. Now, in the past I have had potatoes when I've planted them a little bit shallower. I have had potatoes kind of coming out to the side of the ridge, and obviously if you get sunlight on potatoes they turn green and you can't eat them. So what I typically do with, I'm growing second early potatoes which are kestrel, but what I actually do is grow them like main crop. So what I always do is plant them, it's around sort of 12 inches down I actually plant the potato, the seed potato, and if you imagine I plant them that far down and then I'm ridging them up, so even though it looks like I've planted them sort of 12 inches down and then ridged it up, if you imagine I'm actually, you know, when I'm ridging the potatoes up I'm actually sort of making hollows either side of it as well, so you know the actual potato ends up about 14 inches down or so. I've actually sort of had a sort of burrowed down a one and I've just checked the depth, and it is around 14 inches I'll put them down, and that's to the bottom of the potato, so the top of the potato is only going to be probably about 12 inches off the top of the ground, and I've always found this works really well if you're growing main crop. If you're growing earlies you want to grow them a little bit shallower than that, so I'd suggest for earlies put them about 6 inches down, if not slightly shallower than that, because with early potatoes, you know, you're cropping them that much early, and the actual potatoes are much smaller anyway, so you can plant them a little bit shallower. The next question comes from gardening with puppies, and she was saying that she's had blight on her potatoes. She's been on holiday, come back, and she's had blight on the potatoes. And if you do get blight on the top of your potatoes, don't worry about it. If you look at my past videos, you'll see where I had blight last year. And basically, all you need to do is catch it early. Exactly the way the 3 principles of organic gardening is sort of detect a disease or a fungal infection, whatever, as early as you possibly can do, and get rid of the stalk. So what I suggest you do is cut off any damaged material, or sort of infected material, and then basically bag that up in a black bag, take that, and put it in the bin, and only wash your hands thoroughly, and and any clothes if you come into contact with them. If you do find that it's spread across your potatoes, you've got no choice. Basically what you need to do is just cut the tops off as quickly as possible. If it rains and you've got blight on the tops of the potatoes, it will wash down into the ground and then it will attack the actual potatoes itself. But if you're lucky and it's not rained, then cut the tops off the potatoes, and you should find that the potatoes underneath the ground will be perfectly okay. So if you can get the last year it spread right across my potatoes. I took all the tops off, and then I left the potatoes in the ground for another month or so after that. I dug them all up and I had no blight on the potatoes. I think I had one potato with blight on which was near the surface, but all of the potatoes were perfectly fine. Obviously blight is a fungus, so basically what you need to do is contain it as much as possible. As soon as you see any signs of it, cut them off and get rid of them. I also had blight in the greenhouse, and basically I sprayed with Bordeaux mixture, and that basically sort of knocked it back and stopped it. So that's another way you can do it on your potatoes. Spray with Bordeaux mixture or something like that, but it's not exactly organic. The next I would say actually, just on that, if you do have blight really badly, dig your potatoes up straight away and get them out of the way, and sort of get them out of the ground. That's the best thing to do. The next one comes from Bill's Allotment Diary, and he was saying he's had a lot of problem with tiger slugs on his potatoes, and basically what he's doing now is he's growing his potatoes in a different part of his plot or on the next plot, because he's had so much problem with tiger slugs. And what I've been doing over the past few weeks is I put a lot of boards across the allotment where I walk across, and if you leave the boards there for a couple of days and then turn them over, what you'll find is all the slugs have gone onto the board. Then you could just go along with either a knife or a stone or something and just squash all the slugs, and you do find that you do catch a lot of slugs that way. Obviously I've spoken in the past about different ways of catching slugs and dealing with them, but that's a really good way of doing it. Or if you've got some slabs or tiles or anything, if you put them on the ground, most certainly when it's hot like this, the slugs will go underneath to get into the into the dark, damp conditions that they like. And if you turn over the pieces of wood or the slabs, etc., you'll find all the slugs in there. So that's one way of controlling it. But as Bill said, moving the crop to a different area is another way of controlling it. The next one comes from Peter Roper, and he's asked a couple of questions, So I've not got back to you in writing. I've been quite busy this week, so I've not written back to everybody so far. But I will put some written response back to you at some point. He was saying early potatoes. Now, really, early potatoes, you should be cropping them in June. Early potatoes, really, it depends what type of you know, how big you want the early potatoes. I mean, some people like to dig them up when they're, you know, not much bigger than a sort of golf ball. Other people will sort of dig them up when they're slightly bigger. And obviously early potatoes, if you leave them in long enough, they're basically like new, you know, sort of main crop potatoes. You know, they will keep growing and growing. So really, ideally, you don't want to wait till the plants have flowered. Really, he was saying in his email that he you know, do a wait till they flowered. What I would suggest is you want to wait till they've been in the ground for 10 weeks, and that's when you really need to start digging them up. So whenever you planted them, I don't know when you planted them, but you should be planting early potatoes really at sort of beginning of April. That's when I'd advise that they go in, and then wait for 10 weeks and then dig a root up and see what they're like. That's really the only surefire way of doing it. If they're the right kind of size for you, then obviously carry on digging them up. If they're a bit small for you, leave them in for another couple of weeks, and then, you know, sort of try again. And there's, you know, it depends on a lot of things really. You know, it depends on the variety of potatoes that you've used. It also depends on the weather that you've got. If you've got reasonably damp, warm weather, obviously the potatoes will grow quicker. If you've got drier, you know, sort of more arid conditions, obviously the potatoes won't grow quite as quick. So it depends on your conditions as well. But what I would suggest is you plant your potatoes early April, wait 10 weeks and then dig the potatoes up. If you have planted them earlier than that, obviously just wait 10 weeks and then dig them up. I think he's got his in buckets, but you know, the same rules apply. You know, sort of wait 10 weeks, then dig them up, and if they're the right size, then go for it. If not, you know, wait another couple of weeks, and you know, the tubing will swell a bit further. The other thing he's been asking about is peas. He said he's planted some peas, but he's still waiting for his allotment to turn up. And he's saying, what can I do with peas? Peas are really forgiving with regards to weather. Peas like it cold, to be honest with you. You know, they don't like particularly hot weather. So, you know, don't worry about sort of frost and stuff like that with peas. You know, you can most certainly put them out now. If we do have a frost, you know, they should be okay. You know, peas don't like it particularly hot, as I say. So any sort of position should do with, you know, should do for peas. You know, I'd say put them in a sunny area, you know, possibly semi-shade, and just make sure they've got plenty of water. Peas love water, and you know, and if you are planting them in pots, make sure there's plenty of food in the pots for you to, you know, to feed the peas. But apart from that, you know, this time of year you can most certainly put them outside. And the last thing he asked about was salsify, which is like it's kind of the vegetable's kind of like a carrot. And basically what it is you grow it and you basically eat the root part of it. They're like sort of long, thin carrot sort of thing. And when they first come up, he says he wasn't quite sure how to recognise them. Now, when they first come up, they do look like grass. You know, when the seedlings first come out, they do look like grass. They then sort of afterwards they form into more sort of carroty type leaves. But most certainly when they first come up, they will look like dull grass. So I'm pretty sure that what you've got is correct. So. That was that one. The next one comes from Nigel. Hi Nigel, over in Muddy Boots in Wolverhampton, and he was saying, when do you put your potatoes out in the greenhouse? Now, I put the potatoes out in the greenhouse basically when all these pots have gone out, and what I find is basically all of the plants that are in the greenhouse go outside towards sort of the end of May. If they haven't gone out already. So typically I will plant the tomatoes up in the borders in the greenhouse in sort of the back end of May. That's sort of, so I'll probably look at about another 4 weeks and they'll be in these borders sort of thing. You know, ideally you'd wait till, you know, sort of the end of May to make sure that we have, you know, we're not going to have a frost in any stuff that you put out. But any like sweet peas, brassicas, calendulas and all that kind of stuff can go out. You know, if we do have a frost, that's not going to be a problem. The things that you need to worry about are beans. Runner beans will get wiped out by frost. So I typically either keep them in the greenhouse or if I do put them outside like I did last year, if you look at my earlier videos, I've got them in this sort of carrot bed behind me. What I'll do is cover them with glass just to give them a bit of protection, so it's like, I'll make it kind of into a cold frame. But all of your brassicas and peas, calendula's, flowers, you know, all that kind of stuff, they can go out. Now when I say brassicas, I also mean, you know, all of your things like you know, sort of Swedes and you know, stuff like that. You can put them out. So you know, if you grow them in pots. So I would say sort of mid to end of May, I will put all the tomatoes out in the greenhouse. Typically about that big when I do that. And he says, do you have any vents in your greenhouse? No, I don't. They are really useful, the ones that automatically open up if it's, you know, if it's too hot. But what I typically do, unless there's any kind of danger of frost, I'll always leave these two windows above me here open, and I'll normally leave the door ajar, just, you know, just to let a bit of air in. But I find that you know, that's sort of enough. And all I do just before I go to work in the morning, it's about sort of 6:45. What I'll do is I'll just come up and just open the windows if that's you know, it's going to be a hot day. If I know the weather's going to be you know, sort of cooler, then I'll you know, I'll just open one or just open up a little bit. But no, I don't have any automatic vents, but I may well invest shortly. The next one's off Mark Dowes, and he was saying that he's seen mycorrhizal fungi on sale in B&Q. I don't know what the price is. You know, I got mine from Pomona Fruits over the internet. That was the cheapest I found. That was about £4.50 for a 250 gram bag. But he was saying he's seen it in B&Q. I don't know how expensive it is, but you know, if anybody's after some B&Q one outlet. The next one comes from Nora Hepburn, and she was saying about parsnips, and she always puts hers on wet paper and never has an issue, which is exactly what I'm doing here. So basically, you know, somebody else that doesn't have too much of a problem with parsnips. And I think with parsnips the key is the weather. With parsnips you need warm weather, and I think 9 times out of 10 with people that have problems with parsnips, they're too keen to put them out too early. I mean, I put mine in last week outside, and really that's the earliest you can possibly put them out, sort of mid-April. You know, to put them in. Parsnips are notoriously slow germinators, so you know, if you do put them in the ground, don't be surprised if you don't see anything for 4 weeks, because they can, you know, take up to 4 weeks or even longer to actually germinate and come out of the ground. But as I say, you know, like I do, edge your bets, put plenty of seeds in, something will come. The next one comes from Janice Holland, and she was saying herb parsnips she sows in May. Which comes back down to the same point. Obviously in May the weather's much warmer, and you know, the conditions are better for germination, so you know, that's another way of getting parsnips. Parsnips don't particularly need to go in too early. Obviously you're going to be harvesting the parsnips really next year, sort of, well, or at least in the winter. You know, you're going to be sort of harvesting in sort of December, January, February time for your parsnips, and so really, you know, you don't need to worry about getting them in too early. The things you need to get in early are things like potatoes, onions, leeks and stuff like that. These are the crops that need a long sort of growing period. Parsnips do get better obviously with a longer growing period, but you're much better off from a germination point of view to wait a little bit longer till the weather's guaranteed to be nice and put them in then, if you know, if you're having problems. The other thing you can do is obviously use a parsnip germinator like I've made, or sort of chip them in, you know, some wet cloth like I've done, and put them in the ground. But I'll be showing you which is the most successful way of doing it at the end of the year, obviously when they've started to germinate. But as I say, if you have had problems with parsnips in the past, don't be too keen to put them in too early. You know, wait till the weather gets a little bit better and then put them in, and you'll have a better crop. And to be honest with you, with parsnips, you don't want them too big. You know, you don't want anything kind of bigger than really, you know, sort of that sort of 4 inches across. You want them when they're not, you know, small and sweet. When they get bigger, you get this kind of woody core down the middle of them, which is not so nice. So you're much better off growing lots of them later on, and then harvest them when they're smaller and sweeter and, you know, better sort of thing. The ones you get in the shops, really, they're at the extreme of size that you'd want. You know, you don't want anything bigger than, you know, than sort of that. The next one comes from another one from Nigel, and he was saying with sweet corn. Now, I put a comment on a few weeks ago, if you remember, and I was saying be really careful if you've got 2 types of sweet corn, and I would strongly suggest don't grow more than one variety of sweet corn. because if you get two types close together, if they cross-pollinate, the plants react quite strangely, or can do. And he was saying, well, how close, you know, how far apart really do you need them if you've got two different varieties? Now, I grew two varieties 2 years ago. I had some here by the greenhouse and I had some down the bottom, so they were about kind of 30-40 metres apart. But I would suggest putting them no sort of closer than kind of 13, you know, sort of 12-13 metres apart. I would suggest you have at least that kind of distance between them, otherwise you may well come into problems. So you know, make sure if your neighbour's got corn, make sure that they plant theirs, you know, sort of 10 metres or so away from you, and you should be okay. Parsnips, parsnips are funny sort of pollinators anyway. They tend to pollinate each other. Insects don't typically tend to get involved, to be honest with you. So that's why you always grow, sorry, not parsnips, I'm on them on the brain, sweet corn. They tend to pollinate each other, so insects don't typically get involved. And what you need to do with sweet corn is plant it in a block as opposed to in a row. If you plant it in a row, they don't tend to pollinate very well at all, and you get sort of cobs with just sort of partial sort of, you know, corns in there, if you like. So that, you know, that kind of tells you they don't pollinate very well anyway. So I think sort of 10 metres really should do it. You know, if you keep them that far apart, you should be okay. But as I say, when you do plant your corn out, plant them about, I don't know, about a foot or so apart, or perhaps 18 inches apart, and plant them in a block in like a square. Don't plant them in a row because they won't pollinate very well, or at least the ones on the edge won't. The last one comes from, sorry, Nigel asked another question as well. He was saying the parsnips, I've put 4 different types in, and he says, can you tell the difference between them afterwards? And to be honest with you, I don't think you can. I've grown quite a lot of varieties of parsnips over the years, and to be honest with you, pretty much a parsnip's a parsnip. I've had various different types, and I grow you know, sort of 3 varieties every year, and to be honest with you, you can't tell one from the other. Now this year what I'm going to do is plant the ones that I've chitted in separate areas so I can tell one from the other. So what we'll do at the end of the year is I'll dig some of one type up, some of the other type up, and we'll make a comparison to see, perhaps some are slightly longer or slightly fatter than others, but at the end of the day I think the taste is pretty much the same, to be honest with you. So or at least from the experience that I've had. And sorry, the last one comes from Ken Fuller, and he was also talking about parsnips. A lot of questions about parsnips this week, and he was saying, what do you do with the chitted seeds? Now, as soon as the seeds are chitted, and I'll show you them the seeds later. As soon as they're chitted, what you'll get is a little root coming out the side of the seed. As soon as you've got that, just put them straight in the ground. Try not to touch them with your hands, as I say. So what I would suggest you do is pour some water into the tray, and the seeds will float to the top of the water, so you'll be able to get them out. And then basically what I would suggest you do is just with a lollipop stick or something like that, just put the lollipop stick underneath them, and then so you've got the seed on the end of the stick, and then just sort of tap it into the ground, or, you know, sort of tap off the stick and let it drop onto the ground, and then put the earth over the seed, so you've got about an inch or so of really finely broken up soil over the top, like I showed you last week, and then give the row a really good water. You know, I'd put at least a watering can, if not a couple of watering cans on, just to give them a good watering in, so it's nice and damp, and then just leave them to it. This time of year, if you're putting them in now, and you know, and you're in a part of the country where you could potentially get a frost, it's well worth putting over the plastic like I showed you last week. If you're a little bit further south from here and there's not much chance of frost, or the weather's a bit warmer, you know, I shouldn't worry about that too much. Just make sure you've got no birds or cats on there digging it up, and you should be okay. So that was the questions for this week. So I'm just going to do a quick tour of the greenhouse, and I'll show you the rest of the allotment in the next video. But these are the green broccoli, and what a difference a week makes. I mean, if you look at these plants now, they're almost ready to go out. So I'll be planting these out in the next week. You're more than okay to plant out any brassicas now. So, you know, if you have got them to this stage, as you can see, they're more than ready. So what I'll probably do is, if we're guaranteed a bit of good weather over the next day or so, what I'll do is I'll put these outside, let them harden off a little bit, and I'll be putting them into the ground. These are the tomatoes. These are the moneymaker tomatoes. You can see they're coming on strong. The squashes that went in last week, as you can see, 2 of them are through. This is another crop that grows really quickly. There's another one over here that's come through. Nothing from the courgettes, Winterfest gourds, and the pumpkins and the 2 types of pumpkins there have not come through yet. The sweet peas, we've had the RAF ones have done really well, as you can see. However, the seed that I saved from last year, I've not had so many come through of those yet. I can keep my fingers crossed with them though. The curly kale that went in last week, as you can see, is through, so that will be ready to prick out probably in a week or so. The other kale, the Nero, that's the second batch come through. Sweet peas again. These are the cherry tomato seeds that I saved last year, and 4 of them have come through so far. So we've got 3 there and 1 there, which is more than enough for me. I only actually want about 2 or 3 plants, so that'll do me quite nicely. None of the beans are through yet. These are some onions that are seed onions. These have been grown from seed, so I'll show you them on the plot in the next video. The herbs, as you can see, are doing really well. So that's the basil. Basil's coming through really well, so that really needs to be hardened off soon. The marjoram needs to go out soon. The thyme again is doing well. They're the cuttings for the lavender cuttings have come through. They're the leeks. They're coming through alright, so there's a row there for me, no problem at all. There's the lavender plants that I grew from seed. Some of them are already in bud now. The sweet corn that went in last week, there's the odd one coming through, as you can see there. I don't know if you can see that. That's one of the first sweet corns to come through. So that looks like it's doing alright. This is the purple broccoli that went in last week. So I don't know if you can see that, but they're all coming through, and they're doing well. That's the other Nero kale, so I'll need to prick that out and get that potted up. Those are the calendulas, the pink calendulas. The alpine strawberries are doing quite well at the back. Now here we've got the salad leaf, so they're doing quite well, so I need to get those out into the ground soon. Some more pink calendulas. These are the Swedes that went in last week, believe it or not. So they're starting to get the second leaf there. So as soon as you start to see the second leaf, that kind of tells you they're ready to be potted on. So well, I think what I'm going to do is basically thin those out. There's a couple of cells that hasn't got one in. There's one here and one here. So what I'll do is I'll probably thin them out and then put some of the ones that I've pulled out into the ones that are. But I'm going to go straight from here to the ground. Hopefully get those in the ground tomorrow. If not, I'll just thin them out, and as I say, put them in the cells that aren't haven't got anything in, and then I'll put them in next week. These are the sweet peas again. These are the seeds that were saved from plants last year, and I've not had so much success with the germination. The sunflower. This is the first tray of sunflowers. Obviously, they have only just gone in. I've put some onions in trays. All of the onions are out now, or at least the main onions are. I'll show you those in the next video. But what I've done is I've filled partially a tray with onions, so if I have any failures in the garden, I've got some spares to go in. The lettuce. This is the sort of dark lettuce that looks a little bit like iceberg. That's coming through all right. So they're going to be ready to go out shortly. I'm going to wait for another couple of weeks and then they'll go out. So I think that's pretty much it. The Alicante tomatoes, these are the ones I've been germinating in the house. There's a second batch germinating at the moment, but there's about 15 plants there. They're coming on alright. Those are the other money makers there, which I don't need, but the other Alicante at the back there. So all the tomatoes basically I need now have germinated, so I just need to pot them up. As I say, as soon as you see the second leaf, the true leaf, as you can see there, it's ready to go into a bigger pot. So I'll be putting those into the square pots like the money maker down there. Nothing as of yet from the parsnip propagator. These are the parsnip seeds that went in. I've just put a little bit more water in here, as you can see, the seeds are starting to swell, and on a couple of them you can actually see the roots starting to come out. So you know, there they are coming. Here's the other two trays. So there's one there, I just had them at the corner there so it was a little bit more shaded. As you can see, the seeds are starting to swell. So as soon as you see the little root come out, that's, you know, they're ready, get them in the ground. But you can see that the more transparent seeds, you can see kind of the white section on the inside is starting to grow. So obviously that's the part that's going to grow into the plant. You know, the bit through the shell. So that's the parsnip. So that's the greenhouse on the 18th of April. Sorry, one thing I didn't mention is obviously behind the ginger is the grapevines, and as you can see they're really starting to shoot. So what I need to do is these little side shoots here, I think I need to pinch them out at 2 leaves, but what I'm going to do is consult my book before I do anything. Basically I want to encourage this one at the top here to continue up, so I'll be obviously cutting that off there and leaving that as a runner. The second one, which is this one here, the last shoot is this one here. I don't know if you can see that through there, but that's the last shoot there, so that's the one I'll be training to go up. This one is growing, as you can see. It's a little bit further behind the other one, so this is kind of what that one looked like last week. It's about a week behind. As you can see, the little shoots are coming. But what you want to do, and I'll do a special video on this, but what you want to do is you want to pinch these out so that the strength goes into the end one here, so it continues to grow up along the roof. So that's the grapevine. And I couldn't help myself but look at these asparagus spines that are coming through. So I've got 2 there, I've got plenty coming on. There's another one here. There's another little one next to it. So I've got the asparagus coming through quite nicely, so we're going to be eating this very shortly. So obviously, as I said, this is the first year I've actually cropped the asparagus. There's another really nice one. So I'll be cropping that probably in the next week before it gets too big, and I'm going to look forward to that because I've been growing this for nearly 5 years. So I hope this episode of Jim's Allotment has been of some use to you. Please do put any comments you've got or any questions below. I do appreciate any feedback you've got, and I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.